I'm Peyton. Standing on the balcony of our apartment, overlooking the shimmering expanse of the lake beyond the city skyline, I can't help but reflect on how far we've come. The company we now lead is a far cry from the rigid industrial giant it once was. It's a vibrant, forward-thinking powerhouse, and at the heart of this transformation are my partner, Ethan, and me. 3 years ago, the headquarters of Sterling Industries was a cold, distant place. It was a world of glass and steel, where the only sounds were the clicking of keyboards and the hushed whispers of business deals. I was just a cleaner, a faceless presence in the grand scheme of things, scurrying around with my cleaning cart, trying to make ends meet. My family background was nothing like the opulence that surrounded me at Sterling. I grew up in a small town, where my parents worked hard in a local diner. My father was a kind-hearted man, but he was haunted by the loss of my mother, who passed away when I was in my early 20s. After her death, he fell into a deep depression and started drinking. I had to drop out of college, where I was studying to be a journalist, to take care of him and pay the bills. Every extra hour I worked meant a little more money to keep our home and put food on the table. One night, after the company's annual banquet, I was left to clean up the mess. The grand hall was still filled with the echoes of laughter and the scent of expensive champagne. As I quietly collected empty glasses and stacked plates onto my rolling cart, I noticed a group of young men at the far end of the room. They were dressed in expensive suits, their ties loosened, and a half-empty bottle of top-shelf whiskey sat between them. Among them was Ethan Sterling, the son of Victor Sterling, the legendary CEO of Sterling Industries. Ethan was tall and broad-shouldered, with a confident smirk on his face. He and his friends were laughing loudly, speaking with an arrogance that came from a lifetime of privilege. I could hear their conversation clearly as I worked. One of them said, "Tomorrow is Victor's 65th birthday bash. All the city's elite will be there. What if you showed up with the most ridiculous, embarrassing date imaginable? Someone who'd make those pompous old men choke on their caviar." Another one raised his glass and said, "I'll put $10,000 on it." The others quickly followed suit, and soon, there was a $40,000 bet on the table. Ethan stared at their hands for a moment, and then a spark of excitement crossed his face. "40 grand for the easiest money I'll ever make," he said, clinking glasses with them. My stomach tightened as I heard every word. I just wanted to finish my shift and disappear. But fate had other plans. As I reached across the table to stack another plate, my hand trembled and the top plate slipped from my grasp. It crashed to the floor with a shattering sound, and greasy scraps splattered across my uniform. All 4 pairs of eyes turned toward me. "Would you look at that?" one of them crowed. "The perfect disaster. Perfect loser." Their mocking laughter filled the room, and I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. Ethan raised a hand, and the room fell silent. He studied me with a calculating glint in his eyes, like I was a piece of furniture. "What's your name, rag girl?" he asked, his voice smooth and authoritative. "Peyton," I whispered, staring at the floor. A slow, predatory smile crept across Ethan's face. "Tomorrow morning, I want you in my office. You'll be at my disposal for the entire day." "Understood," he said. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. "Good," he said, clapping his hands once and turning back to his friends with a triumphant grin. "Gentlemen, get your wallets ready. This is going to be the easiest $40,000 I've ever won." That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of their laughter echoed in my head. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, my heart pounding. Inside, the atmosphere was colder than usual. I saw a young woman in a business suit stumble out of the elevator, clutching a small cardboard box filled with her personal belongings. One receptionist whispered to another, "Victor fired her first thing this morning. He was furious when he heard what happened last night." My heart sank. If they were firing people over that night, what chance did I have? As I passed by the hallway leading to the executive offices, I heard raised voices. "Do you have any idea what you've done? It was Victor's deep, thunderous voice. My board is laughing behind my back because my son thinks he's the ringmaster of a circus. Ethan replied in a casual, dismissive tone, it was a joke. Victor's fist slammed against a desk. A young woman was humiliated. A career ruined. And now there's a video circulating of it all. You think that's funny? You think that's how leaders behave? There was a pause, and then Ethan's voice again, colder this time. People will do anything for money. It's not my fault. She didn't think ahead. Maybe she'll learn a lesson. Victor snapped, enough. Today is my 65th birthday. It is my night, and you will not embarrass me again. No bets, no games, no childish stunts. Do you understand me, Ethan? Ethan muttered, yeah, sure. You know me. When Ethan called me into his office, I was terrified. The room was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. He sat behind a mahogany desk, spinning a pen between his fingers. His jaw was tight, but when he saw me, his expression shifted to a lazy smirk. Punctual. Good, he said. We have an important evening ahead of us. I clutched the strap of my bag tighter. Mr. Sterling, I don't want to do this. Please, it'll be humiliating. Everyone will laugh at me. Ethan tilted his head, feigning thoughtfulness. One night of humiliation or unemployment starting today. If you walk out that door, I'll make sure security collects your badge before you reach the lobby. I thought of my father, who was depending on me. I couldn't afford to lose this job. What do I have to do? I whispered. Ethan's smirk widened. Be yourself. Be exactly who you are, clumsy, awkward, out of place. That's all I need. You'll do just fine. He gave me $800 and told me to buy a dress and a proper hairstyle. His driver, a tall man in a black suit, was there to take me and bring me back. I felt like a prisoner. At the upscale boutique, surrounded by silk and satin I could never afford, I was at a loss. But then my hand settled on a deep blue dress, simple and timeless, with clean lines and quiet dignity. I paired it with modest heels and had my hair swept into a soft, elegant bun at a nearby salon. When I saw my reflection in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. That evening, it was raining as I met Ethan at a small restaurant. He was sitting at a corner table, scrolling through his phone, but his thoughts seemed far away. When I walked in, he froze. The trembling, messy cleaner in the shapeless uniform was gone. In my place was a woman in a deep blue dress, moving with poise and dignity. Ethan's phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the table. Peyton, he said, his voice lower than he intended. I simply replied, yes, and sat down. He murmured, you cleaned up well, but there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. I said calmly, I did what you asked. I am here dressed for your game. But before tonight goes any further, I want to understand why you're doing this. Ethan raised an eyebrow and gave a short laugh. Because it's funny. Because my friends and I needed some entertainment. Because life's too boring when everything's handed to you. I looked him in the eye and said, or because you're terrified of disappointing your father. The words hit him like a stone. His smirk faltered. I continued softly, you hide it well behind arrogance and bets and cruelty. But you wouldn't go to this much trouble if his opinion didn't matter. You want to prove something, maybe to him, maybe to yourself. Silence stretched between us. The rain tapped against the window pane. Finally, Ethan exhaled and looked away. You think you've got me figured out, huh? I said, no, but I think I understand more than you realize. I told him about my childhood, about my parents, and how my life had changed after my mother's death. I said, I didn't choose this life, but I choose to stay because someone has to. Ethan listened, his fingers tightening around the edge of the table. He then shared his own story. I was 15 when my mother died. My father was devastated, but he buried himself in work. He expected me to be perfect, to be him. Nothing I did was ever enough. Every mistake felt like a scar on the company name. And I hate it. I hate the pressure, the expectations. In that moment, the arrogant air vanished, replaced by a boy who had never quite healed. I reached across and brushed my fingertips lightly against the back of his hand. "I'm sorry," I said simply. "For both of us." Ethan startled at the touch and then whispered, "Yeah, me too." But then he pulled his hand back and straightened his posture. "But none of that changes tonight. We still have a deal. You'll be my date. We'll go to the party, and I'll collect my winnings. My father will hate it, which is just an added bonus." At the Sterling Ballroom, it was a sight to behold. Crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing softly, and the air filled with the scent of roses and aged whiskey. Chicago's most powerful were gathered to celebrate Victor's 65th birthday. I was nervous as we entered. I expected ridicule, but instead, people were kind. A silver-haired man with a distinguished air stepped forward to shake Ethan's hand. "Ethan, my boy, you've grown up. And your companion, what grace. What poise," he said, bowing slightly to me. Another man approached and complimented my elegance. As we moved deeper into the room, people who had once dismissed Ethan as a spoiled heir now regarded him with newfound respect because of me. I answered polite questions with quiet intelligence, discussing literature and current affairs with a calm confidence that surprised even myself. Across the room, Victor watched us. At first, there was suspicion in his eyes, but as he saw me converse effortlessly with his oldest partners, his gaze softened. He approached Ethan and said quietly, "Your companion is remarkable. It seems I may have misjudged your taste." For Ethan, those words meant the world. But just then, Ethan's friends arrived. One of them called out, "Time for the show, Ethan. We've been waiting all night." Another leaned in close, his breath heavy with liquor. "Come on, man. We paid good money for this. Let's see your Cinderella dance." Before I could react, one of them draped an arm around my waist, pulling me close. "Tell us, sweetheart, do you sweep the boardroom the same way you sweep the floors?" he slurred. I flinched and tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. In an instant, Ethan was there. "Hands off," he snapped, shoving his friend back with more force than necessary. "Don't touch her." The man stumbled, laughing. "Whoa, easy. What's your problem?" "She's part of the game, your game," Ethan said, his voice like steel. "She's under my protection. Get out, all of you." The four men stared at him, their drunken smiles faltering. "You've lost your damn mind," one muttered. Across the room, heads were turning. Conversations faltered, and then Victor's voice boomed, "What is going on here?" The humiliation was too much for me. I turned and fled, my heels clicking across the marble floor. I didn't see Ethan lunge after me, stopped only by his father's furious hand on his arm. I didn't see the argument between father and son, or the betrayal on Ethan's face as his so-called friends slunk away. The next morning, I was terrified to go to the office. I expected to be fired. But when I was ushered into Victor's office, he surprised me. He said, "There was a scandal last night, a disgraceful display of arrogance and immaturity. But not from you. You have nothing to apologize for. In fact, I owe you thanks. Last night, for the first time, I saw my son as something more than the reckless boy who spent his life disappointing me. I saw him defend someone. I saw him choose dignity over foolishness." Ethan then stepped into the room. He sat down beside me and said softly, "Peyton, I owe you an apology for everything, the bet, the humiliation, the way I treated you. I was a coward hiding behind people who didn't care about me. I told them this morning that I'm done. Those so-called friends are out of my life and out of this company." Victor nodded approvingly. "I've already begun the process of cutting ties with them professionally. People like that corrupt everything they touch. Then Victor offered me a position as Ethan's personal assistant. He said, "You have qualities this company desperately needs. Intelligence, resilience, integrity. I believe you can help my son become the leader he's meant to be, and he in turn can teach you skills that will take you far beyond cleaning floors." I hesitated. The memory of the humiliation still burned. But I also saw a chance for a new beginning. I said, "I'll do it, but only if Ethan promises to leave his childish bets behind. Forever." Ethan didn't hesitate. "I swear it. No more bets. No more games. From now on, I'm all in on the company, on doing better, on earning your trust." And so, I accepted the offer. Over the next 3 years, Ethan and I worked together to transform Sterling Industries. We introduced new ideas, built a culture of trust, and focused on sustainability and innovation. Now, as we stand on this balcony, looking out at the city, I can't help but think about how it all started. That cruel bet, which was meant to demean me, ended up building a future neither of us could have imagined. Ethan reaches across and takes my hand. "That ridiculous, humiliating bet led me to the most valuable thing in my life," he says. I smile, resting my head against his chest. "It's funny how life works," I say. He murmurs, "Not funny. Beautiful." And as the city lights twinkle below us, I know that our story, which began with cruelty and humiliation, has ended in something truly extraordinary.